Moving on to the second bear, the process is the same as with the first one. The main important thing to note is that design-wise, it's a variation both as far as the shape is concerned, but I'm also gonna make a color variation with the same idea in mind. That is to say, it's both a mole and a bear at the same time, and it lives in a warm environment. It has to be lit by the same light as the first bear. That's the core of our job as designers, as a concept artist as well. You have to be able to create an infinite amount of variations on an existing design idea. This second creature is meant to have the exact same function, the exact same impact on the gameplay as the first one. Only its visuals are a bit different, and if you're working for a client or in a studio, your director will then decide on the one they want to use in the game. If you are working alone for yourself, it is still useful to make design variations like these. Your first ideas will most likely not be very original. I would go as far as saying as your brain kind of needs to warm up as well. You need the first designs to create new, more interesting ideas. Let's bounce to the techniques I use to make this second bear. First of all, as far as the lighting is concerned, you can see that I'm using the same light color with yellow tones. I'm using the exact same light for this monster as with the other one, so they can both work in the same environment. Although it is purple, you can see that the light is warm, it is yellow. So I'm just brushing in yellow shades at the top of his head, where the light is hitting the most. I'm really using the same color you can see on the other bear. I told you that the lighting comes from the top in the previous video, but I want to elaborate a bit more on the style of gameplay assets. There are specific choices we make as far as the value and the color composition of our gameplay assets are concerned. That is to say, how bright they are, how much contrast they have, both in terms of values and colors. When your player first sees your game, at a glance, he has to know what is part of the background and what he can interact with. That's the main constraint we have as game artists. If the game is fast-paced, the player also needs to see really fast if something is dangerous for him, for instance. That is why all gameplay-related assets contrast heavily with the game's background. We often have that separation between bright characters and a darker background, or it can go the other way around. That's the case in Limbo, where you have a completely black character on top of a really bright environment. All sorts of combinations can work as long as your gameplay elements are the focal point. All gameplay-related assets should share some key characteristics. They should contrast with the game world in a similar way. In other words, you should apply the same rules to all of the sprites. For instance, you can make all of the collectible items in your game shine. You can add an outline to your characters. But it will confuse the player if some collectibles shine and some don't. Here it's very simple. The characters are very exaggerated as far as the saturation, the colors is concerned, and also as far as how the lighting affects their shading. The light is hitting the character hard from the top, but also the highlights from the side are pretty strong as well. I'm going to touch on refining the characters a little bit. The main job in that case is to add shadows in all areas of contact on the character. That's the main way, the easiest way to improve them. I have to strengthen the shadows around the muzzle, the paws, between the body and the ground. You have to take all of the areas of close proximity on the body and add shadows there. This helps to create a clear separation between the body parts, and this makes the character look more realistic because that's how light behaves in the real world. If two surfaces are close to one another, they are more likely not to receive as much light as if they are spread apart. I do tint all of my shadows to create some uniform shading on my character, and that regardless of the color of the element I'm working on. I use shades of purple everywhere just to create some uniform shading on my character. And I'm using purples because this is the most dominant color on the character's body. Not because this is going to be the ambient color of the environment. This is due to the fact that in a game, the same character can be used in multiple environments. So in most cases, you have to shade it so it works in multiple levels. There is one trick that I use to refine the character's shading, which is faster than using the brush only. I use gradients and selections. I select parts of the body, I toggle the alpha lock mode in Krita, and then I feather my selection to soften its edges, and I just use a gradient in overlay mode with, in that case, some shade of purple or a bluish tint, for instance. I'm using that technique the most at the very end when I add the ground element. As far as the ground is concerned, there are two important things to note. First of all, the main color of the ground element is a darker version of the bear's color, and it is more saturated as well. I use shades of purple and different colors to link the character and this other sprite that's going to work in synergy with it. If you pay attention, you'll see that there are lots of different colors in it. And the reason is that this element is used to create a transition between the character and its environment, or the game's ground. And very important, at some point I check how my character looks in the game world. I'm using the Game Art Quest banner because that's the style I'm going for. The last thing I do to make sure that the character really works well is I increase its contrast using the curves filter, that's Ctrl-M in Krita to access it, and at times I'll be using hue and saturation, Ctrl-U. This process is called compositing, and it's all about making your character pop in its environment. Most notably, I'm adding really warm tones to the muzzle of both characters. I'm not showing you all of the tools I use in Krita in details and how they work, simply because I'm working on lots of free tutorials right now that are going to show you that. And this concludes our introduction to monster design. That's the very first tutorial series of its kind on the channel, so be sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments, and be sure to come and check out the Game Art Quest group on Facebook. This is a study group where we do game art just like I've been showing you in this video, together using an exercise every week. That said, thank you all for watching, be creative, have fun, and stay tuned for upcoming Krita tutorials.